It looks like Justin Trudeau is already losing his momentum in his bid for re-election. It was only a couple of weeks ago that we were talking about him being a shoo-in to be re-elected, and I guess the main question was, would he get a minority or would he get a majority? Well, it really does show that campaigns matter, and also, well, that classic line attributed to a British Prime Minister from, well, almost a century ago, events, dear boy, events. They get in the way, and they change the best laid plans of people. Now, I don't think that a number of the things we're talking about right now in the Canadian national conversation were things that liberal strategists wanted us to be talking about. Number one example, what's going on in Afghanistan. So reporters have heard that there was basically plans put in place to airlift out, to do a rescue mission and evacuation of those allies of Canada, the people who had worked as interpreters for us, the Afghan people who had worked as security at the embassy, people who just can't stay in Afghanistan. They will be killed by the Taliban for all of the things that they did. And the question is, why did we not get them out sooner? A lot of people have been saying, look, we got to have a plan in place. They've been saying it for months. My colleague Joe Warmington at The Sun was saying it. I saw a video clip of Hillary Clinton saying it on the news a few months ago. I mean, many people have been sounding the alarm that this issue, it's going to blow up big time if you don't have a plan. So we actually did. Canadian Armed Forces commanders have said they did have a plan. Justin Trudeau, though, too busy worrying about the election to go and give the thumbs up to that plan. And apparently there's a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes conflict, disagreement going on between military leaders and bureaucrats and politicians. This whole thing really blowing up on Justin Trudeau, making it look like he's leaving those guys there. He's leaving them out there for, the worst-case scenario. Hopefully it'll be cleaned up soon, but it does not look good for Justin Trudeau. Really bad headlines for him. Here's another example of something that's not turning out well for him. It seems like Trudeau wanted to bring in the mandatory vaccines as this great wedge issue because the majority of Canadians are vaccinated, 2 doses and so on. So sure, why not make it mandatory? And then if O'Toole says he's against it, you call him an anti-vaxxer. I think it's a bizarre notion, this idea that, people who are vaccinated, in O'Toole's case, you're an anti-vaxxer if you get vaccinated, and most of the people get vaccinated, but you just don't support the mandatory measures. It's really frustrating to see that dynamic get into the conversation, but, well, anyway, that's what Trudeau's trying to do. But we also find out that when he talks about mandatory vaccinations for the federal workforce, well, there's a bunch of exemptions, and it looks like it's not going to be mandatory at all. There's some opt-out clauses, and I think that's reasonable, but it's interesting that the very wedge issue Trudeau was trying to provoke, well, he's not actually someone who's going to be implementing mandatory vaccinations for the federal workforce. So that one backfired on him. And then an interesting little clip in terms of a bit of a gaffe. Justin Trudeau talking about the need for a she-covery to deal with a she-cession.
It is exactly the example of the kinds of things you need to do to counter the she-cession and turn it into a she-covery.
I've heard the phrase she-cession before. Clearly I haven't mastered it. I don't think Justin Trudeau came up with it, but he always has to take these things one step too far. I've heard people talk about a she-cession and so on, but he had to put both of them in the same sentence. She-cession, she-covery, basic idea. Women have been hit harder by the pandemic than men have in terms of economic, financial reasons, so we got to do extra things to help women out. And a lot of women seeing that clip and going, man, this is just icky. This is not 2015 when Trudeau can just say, because it's 2015 as this sort of feminist rally cry. I think they're kind of tired of him talking like that in these really, icky phrases. It didn't sit well with people, showing that this stuff he tried, 6 years ago, not going to pan out well this time around. So there you go, just 3 examples of things that I don't think are turning out the way Justin Trudeau and his Liberal campaign team thought they would. And is this a sign that already it's going to be a much more difficult road to re-election, or, well, a road to a loss for Trudeau than people first thought?